Stanisci of Candid Frank Live. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, and also all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now joining me on Candid Frank Live is Aaron William Freeland. Overall, Aaron, I had a good time today.
Well, I think you've got things well in hand. At least it leaves you with one free.
I surely do. Raking leaves, when you don't get a chance to do it in the fall, it ain't much better in the spring.
Well, they get wetter and heavier too once the snow melts, so that's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it's not. And you know what? We've got quite a bit of leaves, so it's an interesting experience if you don't do it in the fall. What else has been going on with you? You lost your second game, I guess.
Yeah, we're playing a round robin in the playoffs right now, so there's 5 teams and 5 weeks worth of playoffs. We got a bye for the first round because we were the first place team, but have unfortunately gone 0-2 since then with identical 4-3 scores. So we're looking to see if we can turn it around for the last 2 games, and fingers crossed, maybe see our way towards the playoffs, towards at least the third place.
Yeah. So you have a round robin towards the playoffs.
Well, it's a round robin towards the finals, which is, the ultimate goal.
All right. Well, listen, good luck with that. Slow start and all. Hope things turn around for you, literally, I guess, and figuratively.
Appreciate that.
Okay. So an interesting week, to say the least. Okay. Let's start with the Canadian Football League. A lot of players changing hands and stuff, but you highlighted one in Calgary.
Yeah, this was interesting. Long snapper Aaron Crawford has been re-signed. They announced that on Friday. It's going to be his second season with the Stampeders after spending the first 7 of his CFL career with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. He's played 112 career regular season games and has 25 special team tackles and 1 defensive stop. On top of that, they've also signed offensive lineman Hugh Thornton and receiver Floyd Allen. Now, Thornton played 37 games and made 32 starts for the NFL Indianapolis Colts. He went 86th overall by the Colts in the 2013 draft. And Allen was signed with the NFL's Houston Texans as an undrafted free agent in 2019. Shortly after that year, he was selected in the XFL supplementary draft by the Dallas Renegades. And in 2021, he played with the Generals in the Spring League.
Other news in the Canadian Football League, the word came out. We didn't acknowledge it, but I guess we can now, is that word is that the Calgary Stampeders and the Toronto Argonauts voted for 4 downs. Others think that there's also interest in teams joining the XFL. What's your view on it?
I've heard a lot of noise. I mean, most recently, as November 2021, I'd heard stories and rumors that the Argos had played their last season in the CFL and were looking to head to the XFL as a result of that. This is something that's been brooded about since July of 2021. I'm not sure if there's any real truth to the rumors, but time will tell.
Well, my view on it's real simple. I don't know that it can go anywhere. There has not been another football league that's been able to survive. Other than the 3-down league here in Canada, there just isn't a survival rate to speak of in any other kind of football. Now, I understand that the XFL has the rock behind it and has a lot of money behind it. But we haven't seen yet a league that can survive. The NFL is still the king, and it basically is the king and the court and the queen and the prince, and it's everything to everyone.
I mean, basically, the NFL is like it's like putting a 3,000-pound elephant in a room full of mice. It's going to trample on anything and everything. It doesn't really matter. There have been other leagues before. The USFL is one example. Then there's the XFL. There was the proposed CFL expansion into the States that didn't quite work either. I mean, a lot of it has been tried. It just the NFL in and of itself is just such a monolithic entity. I don't think anything can really compete.
Well, maybe like a broken watch, eventually it'll have the right time. You never know. Let's go to the Habs. Jonathan Drouin gets wrist surgery. Sounds like he'll be fine, Aaron.
Yeah, he's expected to make a full recovery. Now, he's been listed as out indefinitely with an upper body injury since March 25th. Up until that point, he recorded 6 goals and 20 points in 30 seasons. He was traded there in 2017. Now, at this point, obviously, Montreal isn't making the playoffs. So, for players that do have medical issues, this is the ideal time for them to go into the shop for repairs. So, this dovetails nicely.
Well, it's the time of year you want to see what your young guys can do.
Yeah.
It's clearly that's it's looking towards the future, because the future definitely isn't now. Speaking of the future and now, we have Matthews has scored his 57th and 58th goals for the Maple Leafs, and beating those Canadians 3-2. This kid's amazing.
He has been on fire. It's great. They've wrapped up a playoff spot for their 6th straight season and have hit 100 points in the standings, which is great news for them. Now, the opening goal that he scored in that game actually marked his 50th goal in his past 50 games. Now, purists argue that it's technically not a true 50 and 50 because it didn't start, on the first game of the season, October 4th, with a 2-1 victory over the same Montreal Canadiens, interestingly enough. So, they're poo-pooing the achievement. I personally don't think it's as big of a deal as scoring 50 goals in the first 50 games, but the fact that he scored 50 goals in 50 games period is a rather large accomplishment. So
It's something they've talked about for the longest time, ever since Rocket Richard. He scored 50 in 50 games. The one difference between Rocket Richard and Austin Matthews is that Austin Matthews can play an extra 32 games. So the 50 and 50, that's where it germinates from, right? So, and they've talked about this 50 and 50 for a long time because it's not something that can be done easily. It's been done. Gretzky did it, you know. So we know it can be done. And then there's a lot of players who have scored more than 60. And the question is, how many games did it take them to score 50? It's just a way to have a conversation to create interest, right? And it's
yeah.
not because he's a Leaf. Like, you see these posts of people who hate the Maple Leafs so much that if something good happens to the Leafs, they question that too. I get questioning how much the team sucks and has sucked over the past half century plus. I get that. But to even have to get to the point that when they do something good or a Leaf does something good, you have to knock it down. But that's the way it goes in Toronto. It's an organization that has failed miserably for so long that people become accustomed and get comfortable with insulting and making fun of the team. And this team is kind of changing the conversation a little bit. And I don't think the people who hate the Leafs and have proposed how much the Leafs, how terrible they are, don't like this change, Aaron. They don't like it. We don't like this. No, don't talk about good things that the Leafs do. They suck. They always suck. That's what they do. No.
It's hard to be on the other side of it, for some folks. And I get it. Like, the desire to poo-poo the Leafs' accomplishments has always been something major and something huge. So, I mean, it is
dependable, Aaron. It's been dependable.
Oh yeah, for the past 50 years, it's been dependable. It's
and now you're starting the year going, the Leafs suck, the Leafs suck, and the Leafs. Why are they in first? The Leafs, can you imagine? I'm sitting here trying to imagine, how many heads will explode if the Leafs actually do win the Stanley Cup. Can you imagine, Aaron? There's going to be exploding heads everywhere. And there are going to be posts everywhere that basically speak to the fact that they don't deserve to win.
Oh, the NHL is biased in favor of the Leafs. It was about time they won. Yada yada yada. Yeah, no, it's
Yeah.
the number of exploding heads will be truly hilarious if it actually happens in our lifetimes.
And there's going to be the ones that It's just going to be hilarious because it's fun watching. Listen, I was born in this town. I'm not really a Leaf fan. I stopped being a Leaf fan the day Harold Ballard abused Dave Keon, and that was it for me. That's when it ended for me. But that doesn't mean I don't like Toronto. And when I say Toronto, I mean the city, right? The community, right? So whether I'm a fan of the team that Toronto has or not, I always, even when I haven't paid attention to the team, I'm always glad for Toronto sports fans when they get a chance to celebrate because this is your community having an opportunity, to raise a glass in earnest about something that they care about, right? Whether you care about soccer and the soccer team wins, TFC wins, it doesn't matter whether you like the soccer team or not. When you go out and they're all celebrating, screaming, and yelling, I can tell you 90% of the people who aren't negative. Now you got to eliminate the negative people, right? But anybody who's on an even keel, you watch people celebrate. Who doesn't join in? You understand what I'm saying? If there's a
Yeah.
hoot and hollering going on, even if you're not going to hoot and holler, you like being around it. Who doesn't like jolliness, happiness, celebration? Come on, man. But then you get the other folks. This is why I said I can't help but I kill myself laughing because there are people who are really going to be miserable if the Leafs win the Stanley Cup. And I'm talking about people in Toronto because there are people who hate the Leafs in Toronto. Now, there's only a few. Go outside the city limits and the numbers begin to grow exponentially as you cross provincial lines, especially the one headed towards that other province that they don't only speak English.
Well, that's a
Not to
given.
name names. Not to name names.
Well, they've hated us since before Confederation, so it's really not a surprise. I mean, let's be real
Yeah,
here.
they hated the Leafs before the Leafs were created. Yeah, no. So this is fun. Toronto fans enjoy it. You eventually, if they're lucky enough to win the Stanley Cup, you know, I'm going to be able to say to those people who are satisfied, happy, and celebratory like yourself, I'm going to say, hey, man, you earned it. I mean, you really earned it. So enjoy it because it's a long time coming.
Oh yeah.
So enjoy it. And that's why I try promoting the idea. Like my only negative when it comes to Leafs is I hope I stand behind everything I've said about the Leafs for the past few years, forever, really. I've always said the same thing, but one thing's for sure, I believe I'm a constructive criticizer. In other words, if they're performing the way I expect and if they're doing what I think is right, I'm not going to look for a new thing to criticize. So at the end of the day, you've got Matthews who's learned how to play the 200-foot game, which I said year one when he came in, that's what he has to learn. Marner has to get tougher. He hasn't accomplished it in my mind. Now, I've watched him in the past couple of games where he's throwing his weight around a little bit. That's a change. That's new. And that's good. And that's what they need to do. And then, of course, the GM. Bring in some people in who you don't have to beat the crap out of somebody, pummel people every day. I've said this in your presence. I've said it when I did the show with David and done the show with other people. I'm not talking about people who beat the crap out of other people. People who stop other teams from beating the crap out of your guys and taking advantage of your guys. So they've done all that. So my only criticism now, what it boils down to is real simple. And that is that their dedication to offense is not questionable at all. Their ability to put in 100% offensively, make the honest effort offensively, there's nothing that can be said negative about that. But from time to time, and let's say 5-10%, it's, they make mistakes. Unfortunately, defensively, they have lapses where they don't commit to the defense as hard as they do to the offense, where they give the opposition easy chances for goals after they've tried 10 times to score a goal with a team doing their best to make sure the Leafs don't score because they have respect for the Leafs offense. Bottom line, Leafs have to respect other teams' offense a little more. That's my criticism for now. Going into the playoffs defensively, that's what they have to do. Aaron, that's my windbag moment.
Perfect. I think that pretty much covers everything, right? Really. I mean, there's really not much left to cover outside of that, but it is Definitely a matter of respect for the Maple Leafs and respecting the fact that opposing teams do know how to score too, even if they don't do a lot of it.
Right. Well, it's fun to watch for you, right?
Yeah.
Like, when did you realize, how soon after, we can all agree that after Matthews came here, right? After he was drafted, there was a feeling of hope. Fair?
I think so. Yeah.
Right? And then when Marner actually came first, actually.
Yeah.
Was drafted first. When Marner was here and then Matthews were here and then you saw how they were you immediately enamored with the thought that they could win the cup with those
I,
two guys? When
you
did
know
it
what?
happen for you? When did you think it was actually possible?
Um, Honestly, I think it was after we added Nylander and Tavares signed here as well that it started to be one of those, this could actually become a thing sort of moments. Add in the fact that we also extended Morgan Riley. We cleared out some of the chaff and brought in additional
That
players
was
that are
this
good
year. That was
support.
this. So this is your first year where you think they've had a chance to win the cup?
It was building towards it. It wasn't necessarily that they re-signed Mo; it's that they kept him around in the first place as well. When Gardner left and JVR left and Nazem Kadri left, that was sort of an indication there that they were trying to be a little bit more serious about this sort of thing because there were some glaring deficiencies on defense that characters like Gardner and issues on forward that players like Kadri sort of exemplified was the inability to get things done and the lack of impulse control, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And watching Gardner get turnstiled game after game in the playoffs was just frustrating because it just wasn't there.
Okay,
So
so for you recognize the greatness of those three players, four players, the four that everybody always talks about, right?
yeah,
Nylander, Tavares, Matthews, and Marner. For me, them having a chance to win the cup, it has happened a few times with the Leafs, where I thought they have a chance to win the cup. The first time that I remember is when Sittler, McDonald, and Thompson became the line that they became, with Turnbull and Salming on defense. Hammerstrom wasn't a bad player, but as the owner Harold Ballard used to say, you could go in the corner with 2 eggs and come out with 6. Um, I thought they could have won a cup that year, and with that group, and then Ballard blew it up. He just literally blew it up. McDonald moved on to Colorado. Uh, yeah, they were Colorado. Yeah, they were Colorado at the time. Anyway,
the
the
Rockies,
Rockies.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were the Rockies, right? And he went on to there and then went to Calgary and they won the cup there. Then, of course, Gilmore came here. Andrechuk, um, you know, um, the dog in net. They had a chance there too. They had some good defensemen, but again, unfortunately, the players I guess were too old, and they missed the chance when the penalty wasn't called on Gretzky. They had a chance then as well. And that was also the same year the Jays won the World Series, if you remember.
yep.
So it was going to be a big year for Toronto, right? The way it was going, because
Well, that was the hope.
both those things were happening, in at the end of the summer for the Leafs, and early in the fall for the Jays. And then this time, seeing Matthews come, Marner, and having all that talent, I guess the long-winded point I'm trying to make is it hasn't been too often for the Toronto Maple Leaf fans that they've actually seen legitimate greatness representing them on the ice, to the extent where you could actually think about them winning a cup. Now, I understand, you know, Gilmore and company made it to the Western final, right? They couldn't make it past that. I understand that, that Daryl Sittler, God bless him, one of the greatest Leafs of all time, and McDonald beat the Islanders in the middle of winning 5 Stanley Cups, beat the Islanders and made it to the Eastern final. Those were were the greatest moments in Leaf history. Now you have a guy like Austin Matthews, who is the best of the best, and you have a team that is third overall, fourth overall, fifth overall. We can quibble about where they are, in the standings, right? But Aaron, this team can win it. There should be a lot of hope in people, and the point I've been trying to make all along is that with Leaf fans is sometimes they're a little too hard on the team. So now this team right now, I've said my opinion. What do you see this team doing or looking like to win a Stanley Cup? What do you see that they have to do and how they have to play to win a Stanley Cup? And so in these last 12 games, what are they going to work on and to be ready for the playoffs?
Well, with only 10 games left in the season and currently sitting tied for fourth with the New York Rangers, who coincidentally have the secured a playoff berth for the first time in
They're
5
my
years.
favorite to win in the East.
What, the Rangers?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, there's a certain style that they play that I think is conducive to that sort of thing.
It's the guy in the net. It's just the guy in the net.
You're talking about Shesterkin at this point?
Oh, jeepers creepers. They're going to be tough to beat with that guy. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I interrupted you.
No worries. I have a certain amount of hope for the Leafs team at this point. They've enjoyed a great deal of success. It's kind of hard to argue with where they've placed themselves. The issue that I'm coming across here is they're in a division that is extremely tough. And they're in a conference that is extremely tough. But the one thing that they have to be aware of and they have to remember is that the playoffs are an entirely different beast. Everything changes once the first round starts. And I think it was a tough lesson for them to learn. And it's been a tough lesson for them to keep learning in the first round every single year. My feeling is if they can make it past the first round, there is a very, very good chance that they could go all the way. But it's a question of making it out of the first round in the first place.
But what do they have to do that, Aaron? What does their game look like? I'll tell you real quick. They have to be as committed defensively as they are offensively. I'm making it a shortcut. Their goaltender has to play better than reasonably well, whoever that goaltender is. So needless to say, when I say their offense has to play as good as they like to play offensively, and their defense has to play the same, and both offer assistance in both those things. It's 5 guys on the ice that I learned a long time ago watching the Russians beat the crap out of Canadians in 72, that I learned there that a team of 5 players plays both defense and offense, because with good defense comes great offense. I firmly believe that. And the Leafs have the tools now to do that. They have some stay-at-home defensemen. So I'll be a little more specific than you were. They're stay-at-home defensemen. They've got some balance on defense, and those guys all have to do their job. They have to do their job. Offensively, coming from the defense, they really don't have. Muzzin tries to be that guy, but he shouldn't be that guy. And we know Mr. BC. We talked about him and getting his bump, his salary bump this year. He's pretty much it offensively. But now all of a sudden they got Giordano, who's got a shot from the point. So the contribution to offense from the defense, they have it. So they're going to have to do that without giving up a lot of defense. And I got to tell you, Aaron, Shesterkin, the New York Ranger goalie, he's going to win the Vezina. He is the best goalie in the National Hockey League right now. Whatever team faces the Rangers, if they can't figure that guy out, they're in trouble. And you're 100% right that the Leafs are in a tough conference. But the one thing that the Leafs can do for themselves, doesn't matter who they play in that first series, because just imagine, they're going to play an Atlantic team, and where they are right now, they're pretty much locked in the middle of the division, right? So that there's a good chance they're not going to be in the wild card, correct?
Correct. At this point, we're looking at either Tampa or Boston in the first round.
And either of those teams, if they can beat either of those teams, case in point, Bruins, huh? If they beat the Bruins, you think confidence is going to develop? And what are the Bruins? They are the main foil of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Tampa Bay Lightning, who are they? Oh yeah, they won the cup twice in a row. So beat either of these teams, Aaron. To your point, yeah, it's a really tough division. But if they can beat either of those teams, it'll be a confidence builder for them, something that they can build on, because that's all they lack, Aaron, is a history in winning in the playoffs.
As we get into the last seconds here, the one thing that I do want to mention is if we see our way past either Boston or Tampa in the first round, I'm pretty certain that we're going to be able to win the cup, because those are our two major bugaboos right there.
You still got Colorado.
When it comes down to the final horn, man, that's all we got to do is we got to at least put one of our demons to rest.
Well, let's just say for today, you and I are having a conversation of who will come out of the East. Let's worry about who comes out of
the West later.
Let's worry about who comes out of the West later. We got time for that. Thanks, Aaron. This was sweet.
Thanks, Frank.
All right. He's Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out SpanglishWorld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.